Hi everybody. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about tapping maple trees. I'm going to go through a couple of things that you need, some pieces of equipment. You should be receiving your spiles in the mail soon, so you'll be able to participate and tap your own trees if you like. I'm just going to talk about some of the other things that you're also going to need, and we're going to talk a little bit today about how to tell when the time is right and how to plan your maple tapping project. So the first thing you need to do is take a look at the weather. What we really need here is several days in a row where the temperature is going below zero at night and above zero during the day. It's helpful to look at the 14-day trend, but of course in Newfoundland and Labrador it can be hard to predict the weather too far out, but it'll kind of give you an idea if you're seeing those fluctuations above zero, below zero, above zero, below zero, back and forth. So the sap is only going to flow out of your tree when the tree is warm enough, so above zero. But it's really helpful if at night the temperature goes back down again, and so you get this sort of continuous contracting, swelling of the tree, and that sort of helps to pump the sap up and out and gives you enough pressure to force it out your spout and into the bucket where you're trying to collect it. So it's really useful that we get that up and down. We don't want to go into any sort of deep freezes, and it's not really all that great if we get several days in a row of warm weather. Now that being said, we do have a very, very long maple season here, so it's not like we really have to worry about the leaves coming out and stopping us from collecting. So you can collect sap essentially here until your tree heals itself, because we'll go through such a long period of time where the weather is going above and below zero, certainly in most parts of Newfoundland. So you don't have to start right away, and if you think that it's better to wait a couple of days and your 14-day trend is going to look better, then you can definitely do that. But we're going to tap one today just so that we can get an idea of what that looks like, so that if you're in a place where it looks like that the temperature is going to be cooperating with you for the next 14 days, you can get started on collecting. So if you've decided that the time is right, let's take a look at some of the equipment you're going to need. But you're going to need something to collect the sap, and believe it or not, a bucket of this size can sometimes get full if I don't check the sap every day. So a lot of sap can come out of your tree, so try and get something that's big enough. Now you should have received some spiles in the mail, and if not, you're going to get them soon. So the spile is sort of the little tap itself that's going to let the water, or the sap rather, drip out. And it should have a little hook on it here so you can hang the bucket, like so, and then the sap can drip down like that. Now, in order to install this, you're going to have to make a hole in your tree, so that requires probably a drill. You're going to want a pretty big drill bit, one that is going to sort of fit your spile there. So you don't need your spile to go all the way in. It's okay if it only goes in maybe halfway. But in order to make sure that your drill bit is going to fit there, you kind of just want to check, how thick is it? How big is the hole going to be that you're making? So I find a 1/2 inch is the right size for me. You might find 5/8 of an inch is the right size for you. It will just depend on the size of your spile. If you make it too big, the sap is just going to leak out the side of the spile, and you're not going to get it in your bucket. So you don't want it to be too big. So start small, and you can always make the hole bigger. Now you might also want some sort of hammer or mallet to tap this in to the tree. I tend to just push it in. I've had these break on me before when I've hit them, and that's no good. I mean, I've had this piece of it just snap right off, and it still works, but not quite as well. So I tend to just like push it in, maybe give it a little tap with something like a pair of scissors that are not like metal on metal, so it's less likely to break. But that's basically what you're going to need to get yourself started. So you'll have spiles in your kits, and you're going to have to go looking for something to drill a hole with that's going to be big enough around, and something to collect the sap with, like a bucket or a margarine container or something like that. So if you've got all your supplies and you think that the weather is right and you've picked the right time of year, you're also going to want to make sure you have the right type of tree. So right now we're talking about tapping maples, and the maple season does generally start in my part of Newfoundland around March. There are other parts of Canada where the maple season is sometimes in February, but generally I find here on the Avalon, March is an appropriate time. And I would say most likely in most parts of the province, March is an appropriate time for you to be tapping your maple. So if you do have access to a maple tree, you want to start thinking about that now. If you only have access to birch trees, you can also tap birches. It's a little bit more complicated to use the birch sap and turn it into a product that is useful. However, birch trees might be more common where you are. They're certainly easier to identify if you're looking for white birch because they have that nice white papery bark on the outside, and even in the middle of the winter it's really easy to tell what they are. So some people want to tap birch trees instead, and that's perfectly understandable. So if you are looking to tap your birches, you're probably going to have to wait a bit later. I generally find I'm not tapping my birches until the end of my maple season, and so that would be starting at the end of March and the beginning of April. Okay, so I think we're just about ready to head into my backyard and tap my maple tree. I'm going to be using one other piece of equipment that I find to be really helpful when I'm tapping maple trees, and that is a pair of snowshoes. I have quite a lot of snow built up in my backyard, and you may find the same in your backyard as well, or whatever location you choose to go and tap trees. So something to consider is if you can get your hands on a pair of snowshoes, it will make things a little bit easier, especially if you're trying to haul buckets of sap back from the woods to whatever location you're going to be storing them at. Okay, let's check it out. Alright, so we're here in my backyard in front of our big old maple tree, and you can see that the buds are starting to come out and turn nice and green on this tree, which means that it is getting ready to grow all those new leaves. It has to bring all of the nutrients up from the roots, up along the trunk, out the branches, and we're going to tap into that a little bit and siphon off a little bit of that sap as it moves up and out. So we picked a day when it's warm, weather's temperatures above 0, so we're not going to do much harm to our tree. And we've got a pretty big tree here. We could actually probably put 2 taps in this one if we wanted to, but today we're just going to do one. Alright, and we can see a bit of sap has started to come out already, so we know that we've gone through to the sapwood. This is great. But our tap wants to go a little deeper than that, so we're going to go a little further. I just sort of push mine in. Again, you can tap it in ever so lightly with something, but try not to hit metal on metal because I have had my spiles break. And then you're just going to want to hang your bucket underneath on the hook. And then as this pressurizes, the sap is going to start to drip out of the spile and into the bucket. And I should probably check that every morning or so to see how much sap is collected.